Hello and welcome back. We're episode 3 now of Transcending Veils. I am your host, D.E. Riley, and this is my lovely and talented co host,
Audra Moon.
Audra. How are you, dear?
I'm fantastic. Uh,
Good.
it's been beautiful. We've had this crazy heat wave, but creatures
Uh,
of the night don't really like the sun and the heat like I do. But
yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've been going through the same thing here.
Mhm.
We have discussed in the past that we have been fighting through technical difficulties. We have had problems after problems after problems recording this. We said we were going to keep chugging ahead and keep fighting through it. And we thought we had everything licked. We thought that with the new mics and new computers that everything was going great, and we start the podcast tonight, and what happens?
A whole bunch of technical
A
difficulties.
whole bunch of difficulties. We have noises coming out of nowhere. We have spirits thumping, it sounds like, on the microphone very rhythmically. I don't know if it's being recorded or not, but something is trying to keep us from talking and carrying on a conversation.
Exactly.
But
And we've got a bunch of static white noise going on in the background. It's what a nightmare.
but that's why we're here, right? That's the reason we're
Exactly.
here. You know, I think, and which is a great lead in. I mean, you have these little things like this that all through time, as we're growing up, the human mind, and especially like the teenage mind, you can make a lot out of very little, and that's how a lot of things get started, is by we are having technical difficulties. There's spirits or demons or whatever that are trying to keep us from doing this podcast. And what does things like that turn into with a very, very imaginative mind? Sooner or later, it's going to turn into an urban legend. And that's what we're going to be discussing tonight, urban legends. Aud-
Sounds great to me.
Audra, have you got any
Yeah.
any any juicy urban legends from your side of the world over there?
So in fact, I do. So in my state, the good old state of little Rhode Island, um, we have so many different urban legends. We have, Mercy Brown, who she was allegedly a vampire during the time of uh, tuberculosis. During her time period, I should say, tuberculosis was running rampant. They believed that she had cursed her family, and when she was when she had died of tuberculosis herself, they had dug her up and they exhumed her body and saw that it was still intact after weeks, where it should have been um, in a state of uh, decomposition. And it also had appeared that she had shifted in her coffin. So, what they ended up doing was they drove a stake through her heart, and her body was burned. And with her body being burned, her brother had also came down with tuberculosis, and he, in turn, was forced to eat her
Oh my god!
ashes to try and cure this plague that had come about the family, which they suspected was because she was a
Now,
vampire.
is correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't isn't this story the actual story where Bram Stoker got the idea to start writing about vampires and Dracula? It,
I I do believe so. I have heard of that. I have not dug into that enough uh, to find out if that was actually true or not.
Uh-huh.
But I do know that she was considered the first American vampire.
Wow.
Um, because I mean, you're going back in the early 19th century,
Now,
so
what was her name
um,
again?
her name was Mercy
Mercy
Brown.
Brown. Okay, guys, do your research out
Yep.
there. Look it up.
hmm We also have another vampire, um, Nellie Vaughn. Her whole legend is basically exactly identical to Mercy Brown's, with the difference of her family or her siblings weren't forced to eat her ashes. Um, her grave, both of these women, their graves sit in the middle of nowhere, back of the woods, hard to find. I've been to both quite a few times.
Now, if
Um,
this you said in the back of the times of tuberculosis, we're talking about the mid to late 1800s. Is that right? Okay.
yes,
Okay. Just to get a timeline.
I believe. You know something? I'm going to double check really quick, because I do believe it was the end of the 18th century, with Mercy
Right.
Brown, but I want to fact check because I mean you're nothing if you don't fact check.
No, you're just
Got to keep
creating an urban
facts straight.
legend. Is what you're doing.
Exactly, exactly.
There's
Um,
no facts with urban legends. That's why they are what they are.
yeah. So it was in. She died in
Yeah.
1892, and she was 19
Yeah.
years old. She died of
The late
tuberculosis.
1800s, right? So there it is.
Exactly. Yep. So and her case is one of the best documented cases of ex- exhuming a corpse in order to perform rituals to banish and an undead manifestation.
Ugh.
And it was actually it was part of the wider known, go figure, because it's New England. When you really think of New England, you think of like Salem witch
Right.
trials and all of that stuff. And the they went through the witch hysteria and all of that. Um, During this time, it was part of a wider issue, being the New England vampire panic.
Oh, okay. So
Mhm.
that's what possessed these people to think this woman was a vampire. I mean, to the point where they would exhume her body and force her sibling to eat her cremated ashes. Etc. What the hell drove them to that?
Uh, so, I mean, when you really think about it, everything back then, everyone was afraid of witchcraft. Illness was known, but it was known for it. Everybody thought it had supernatural
Yeah.
causes. Something as simple as tuberculosis had to have been the work of vampires or witchcraft. Um, so the problem is they believed her with having her, since they believed she caused the illness to fall on her family.
Ah.
Um, you know, her with her ashes being mixed, they were actually mixed with water and to create a tonic, and it was given to her sick brother to help you know, resolve the illness and stop the influence of the undead. And this is the mindset of these people way back when.
Wow. Wow. That, and it's golly. I mean, ugh, I'm so flabbergasted that humans are capable of buying into such fantasy, and such rumors, and how it gets blown up, and how this is a prime example of how an urban legend starts, um, just from fear, from fear of the unknown, that people start creating all of these stories and all of these fantasies to the point of, oh my God,
Hmm.
they, and I can't get past making her brother drink her ash. I mean, that to me is like, you know, that's that's cannibalism 101 right there, But yeah, it's wow, that's insane.
The the biggest thing about Mercy Brown is, you know, there was science back then, but it wasn't to the level of what it is now. We know this. Um, During the tuberculosis epidemic, back then it was also called consumption.
Right.
Um, they had actually given I believe it was her father, I believe it was her father, who had convinced, someone in the town to exhume several bodies of the family members who have died of tuberculosis. And what they had found was the majority of the bodies had had the expected level of decomposition. So when they exhumed Mercy Brown, and there was all sorts of crazy stuff, that she looked like she moved in her casket. She had no signs of decomposition. Some people say that she still had blood in her heart and in her liver. Um, so, with that being said, that her being buried around the same time as some of her family members, and they were exhibiting this level of decomposition, and she was not, all of a sudden she's a vampire, especially given she had blood supposedly in her heart and in her lung in her lungs, in her liver. But the thing is her lack of decomposition was more likely due to her body being stored in freezer-like conditions in an above ground crypt
Ah,
during the 2 months that followed her death.
and
So,
there's the debunking factor right there. You know,
exactly.
Unfortunately, at that time, um, yeah, I could see how that could spread into, into a real real juicy rumor going around, and I
Yes.
mean, science, like you said, isn't anything near what it is today. So it there was still a lot of superstition that went along with, with the science of that time, and plus you get crazy people involved in it, and the next thing you know, you've got, yeah, you got the insanity going on for sure, for sure. But but
Absolutely. But it's insane because that legend has traveled all of this time. Everybody know, I mean, my kids know about it. So, with that being, and without me telling them about it, uh, so I mean, this
now,
has traveled through generations, and I mean, it is her grave site is it's popular
oh,
for, thrill seekers, and people who are uh, paranormal investigators or paranormal explorers or anybody who just has a general curiosity.
Right.
Some people claim that they have been chased right out of the cemetery. I say cemetery. It's really not a cemetery. It's really just her grave in the middle of the
Right.
woods. Uh, she lies in an unmarked grave. She does. There is a headstone now at the church because she is buried in the woods behind um, Baptist Church in Exeter, Rhode Island. But her headstone is not where her body is. Her body is buried in an unmarked grave, which, even though it is unmarked, people have been there so many times that you know where it is, and they've left little things.
Well, isn't that
Um,
kind of odd though? Why would they do that? That that's put the graves.
they ruin it for everybody. They ruin it for everybody. It kind of ruins the, you got to hunt to find it kind of thing with them leaving breadcrumbs. But
Yeah, okay, I could understand that. Yeah, because if
mhm,
not, if it was easy to find, there's no telling what would happen to that grave by now. You know.
yes. Um, so, and that's the thing. People have decimated the grave, the gravestone. It has been replaced. It's multiple times. It's not even the original gravestone. But people say that they've been chased out of the woods by something lurking in the woods. Um, People have taken pictures and have seen all these orbs, and people claim that they see her, her spirit lurking around her actual unmarked grave. Some people say that she haunts the church. There's so many different variations of it.
The legend lives
Um,
on.
yes. But here's my theory. If, in fact, she was a vampire, she's not going to be haunting a church. Especially one that's occupied still.
Well, and that to me is I'm trying to this is getting way off topic, getting into all of that, but how what's to say that the the vampire legends aren't anything but urban legends themselves? And if there were actual true vampires and that are roaming the earth, what's to say they're just not laughing their ass off, going, "Yeah, well, crosses don't have any effect on us. We walk around in the daylight too. That's not a problem. Holy
Yep.
water is not an issue. They just
Yep.
they
Well,
just
I
cruise
would.
on through life like everybody else
Yeah.
because
Hmm.
if you're trying to hide, you look at somebody that is number one immortal, that never eats, that sleeps during the day and is awake at night, has you know the greatest orthodontist in the world obviously, and
Yes.
uh, all these very, very obvious warning signs that someone is a vampire. You would think through all these centuries that they would have evolved
Adapted.
and adapted
Yes.
into everybody else. They have to develop that perfect disguise in order to exist, in the
Oh,
21st century.
absolutely.
you know so
Hmm.
all the things that 200 years ago were telltale signs that someone was a vampire don't exist anymore. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's way off topic. I realize that,
It is.
but it's still the the legend, and this is although the legend of vampires is far outside the realm of urban legends, this particular legend of a vampire is absolutely an urban legend for where you're at, because this is something that I'm sure every Halloween, you know, there are you know, pilgrimages to this lady's gravesite, and you know,
Hmm.
the high school kids are out combing the woods, looking for the, you know, for the vampire, you know, to scare the hell out of one another, you know, very basically. So yeah, you know,
Yeah,
that's awesome. Um, but it
I did.
go ahead, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was just gonna say I did also do a little fact check
Yeah.
too, that Bram Stoker. Oh my God, Stoker. Uh, did in fact model his novel's character Lucy off of Mercy Brown.
Ah, okay. All right. I thought I had read that yeah, he was tied in there somewhere. Um,
And he also no, I'm sorry, not him. She is also referred to in some of H.P. Lovecraft's, or one of H.P. Lovecraft's
really?
stories. Um, yes, interestingly enough, this is not an urban legend. H.P. Lovecraft and his fantastic and enigmatic writing, he's actually buried right here in Rhode Island. So it's exciting.
Well, you know, I mean, it's funny because it seems like there are a lot of a plethora of legends and um, horror stories that come from the Northeast. You know, the Rhode Island. I mean, look at Stephen King. He's out of Maine. You know, everything he
Yes.
writes pertains to that area. I mean,
Yep.
my mind went blank here.
With I believe the exception of The Shining. I believe The Shining was out of
Colorado. Right,
Colorado.
right. And,
Yes.
and that's only because he stayed there. You know, he stayed at that
Yes.
hotel, and that's where he got the inspiration for the book. Um, but you also have the I'm going crazy. I hate it when age kicks in and my mind goes blank. Um, the Conjuring houses in your area also, is it not?
It is the Conjuring House in. So some people say it's in Burrville. Some people say it's in Harrisville, Rhode Island. There is really not much difference between the two. They are basically the same border. Like that's it.
Right.
Um, that is like your woodsy area, farmland in Rhode Island. But yes, the um, the Conjuring House is actually probably an estimation about 30 minutes, 35 minutes from me. Um, and it is now currently a bed and breakfast and a tourist hotspot. And
Well, of
that
course it
was
is.
based, of course it is. That was based off of the legend of Bathsheba, who was a witch. Supposedly, she was a
Really?
witch, I should say. Yes.
Now,
Um,
I've never heard the
Bath.
backstory of that. All I've seen is, you know, the movies that have come out, and I, you know, I saw one, or, you know, Conjuring 1 and 2. I think everybody has great movies. You know, very entertaining.
Yes.
But you know, I personally, you know me. I mean, I'm skeptical about a lot of paranormal stuff simply because I experienced so much paranormal stuff in my lifetime that
Hmm.
there is a eyes wide open approach to real and fake, and you know, I mean, you know how I feel about ghost hunters. I mean, for you know,
Yes.
99.9% of them is just bullshit, you know. and I don't buy into it. I've got a house literally 50 feet from me right now. It's an abandoned house. It's been abandoned for almost 10 years now. The old guy in there died of cancer. He was alive when we moved here. He died shortly afterwards. Um, I guarantee you, you go in that house right now and you spend 20 minutes in that house, you're going to hear banging and scratching and knocking and footsteps and all kinds of shit. And the reason why is
Yep.
because there is a family of about 10 raccoons living in his chimney. And they are going to make noise and raise hell, all night long at this place. And I mean, there's a psychological term for it for when you go to some place expecting something to happen, you're going to make it happen in your mind. It's your mind is going to push every little nuance in the direction you want it to go in to achieve that goal. So
Oh, absolutely.
I mean that's how urban legends are born. Right there is people will take that story, which may be based in fact somewhat, and bend it and twist it and push it and shove it, and probably I bet you 85% of urban legends are created by teenage guys trying to get laid. I mean, I swear to God,
Oh, yep.
they're trying to scare
They'll
their
say anything.
girlfriend so she'll hang on to them.
Yeah,
And because
exactly. Exactly.
that was we had when I was in high school in Southern California, up near Mount Baldy, which was a ski resort outside of L.A. There was the chain. Okay, I have no clue what this frickin' chain was for, but there was an area on the drive up there where you pulled off. You walked about 15 or 20 yards off the road, and there was this post, and this post had this huge chain attached to it, and it went down, and the chain then was connected to something in the ground. According to the urban
Hmm.
legend, that chain was a chain into a grave there on the side of the mountain where a miner's wife had died in the early 1800s and buried her there. And if you went out there late at night and you rattled that chain and you were real quiet and you didn't move, well, that chain would rattle back. Yeah,
Oh,
right.
wow.
That's gonna happen. Well, I we found the chain. We used to go up there all the time and rattle this lady's chain, but it was probably a lid to a manhole cover or whatever. We didn't know. That was just the urban
Yeah.
legend of that area.
It's
And
it's just like it's just like Bloody Mary or Candyman, you know. When kids would stand in a mirror and say the name 3 times.
mhm.
You know, I've done it. Nothing has ever happened, obviously. Um, although, for the longest time, believe it or not, my grandmother had scared the ever living shit out of me because I asked her, I said, when you were a kid, have you ever said like Bloody Mary in the mirror? Or, Candyman, which Candyman's based off of a movie. So,
Right.
which, I mean, by the time that movie came out, she was, oh my God, probably in her 50s. So, no, she didn't stand in the mirror saying Candyman. Um, but I remember asking her if she had ever, stood in the mirror and played Bloody Mary or Candyman. And she said no. And I said, well, what do you think? What do you think would happen if I did it? And she looked at me and she was just, stone faced. And she said, I wouldn't if I were you. And I was like, huh. Well, I'm not going to stand in the bathroom and say Bloody Mary or Candyman ever in my life.
You go,
Never going to
Grandma.
do it. I mean, yeah. And then fast forward, and 16-year-old me, and I'm sitting there doing it, and I'm like, this is stupid.
But there's,
So, like, nothing's happening.
right, right, and but the thing is, people get so wrapped up in these. I mean, look at Slender Man, right? I mean that
Oh,
cost a
yeah.
girl her life. I mean it's
It did.
it's sad because you give kids credit that they're a lot smarter than that. Come on, this is bullshit, but you buy into it, and people buy
Yep.
into urban legends. They have, and they will. There's still so many of them floating around right now. It's ridiculous, and science has proved, and
Hmm.
reality has proved that they're all false. And and they may be born a fact, but the legend built around it is 99.9% crap. Um, but um, what else? You have anything else from your neck of the woods? Because I got something from my neck of the woods, but I want to
Um,
hear what you got. I'm interested because this
so
is stuff I don't know. Yeah.
yeah, I do want to touch on The Conjuring. So, the Conjuring movie.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, so that was personally, given um, my background in witchcraft and all of that, and working with um, spirits and all of that fun holly jolly shit. Um, I, in my personal and professional opinion, do not believe that the family, the Perrin family, were actually being haunted by the ghost of Bathsheba Sherman, who was. She's depicted as a white woman in the film. She is actually an African American. Um, she was actually African American, and she was born in 1812. She actually was just a little housewife. Her husband was a farmer. Um, but the sad truth behind her is I believe that because, in the early 1800s, with her being African American, she was there was a prejudice against her.
Hmm.
Um, so a lot of people believe that she was actually a witch. Um, one of the one of the rumors that had actually been started about her was that she was murdering children and offering them to the devil. She was never convicted of anything, and she died of old age. But I guess there was suspicion about her being a witch and or a satanic witch, for that matter, um, because supposedly a baby, an infant, had died in her care, and they found the cause of death to the infant to be a large sewing needle that was impaled in the back of the infant's skull.
Oh, jeez.
This was never proven. It was never proven. She was never convicted of anything. Some sources say it was her own child that was killed and offered to the devil, but there are no census records that confirm the information of her having a child.
So
So,
it's just
I do believe that, yes, I believe that she was just an African American woman who was treated very poorly. She died of old age, but a lot of rumors went around about her. So, um,
what was the timeline
and
of this?
that was what was played. This was in 1812. She was born in
Oh,
1812. She died in 1885.
oh well, that you know,
So I mean,
there you
you're
go.
still going
Yeah,
back in a time where you know um, African Americans or anyone of African descent was not accepted. So
right.
the Perrin family moved in to the house in Harrisville, which was Bathsheba Sherman's farm in 1970, but they moved out in 1980. So, with that being said, Bathsheba Sherman, she passed away in 1985. So, 85 to 90 years later, um, whoever was in the house prior to the Perrin family, they never reported any paranormal activity or being haunted by the spirit of the witch Bathsheba Sherman. Um, so now all of a sudden, the Perrin family moves in 1970, and they're plagued, and it's blamed on Bathsheba Sherman, which I find very interesting. So you have nothing from Bathsheba to when the Perrin family moved in. You have nothing, no paranormal accounts from any other family that lived there in between the time of 1885 and 1970. You have no records of paranormal activity within the house. But
Now, do they have a record of how many different residents live there, or was it just one in? I would assume there was more than one in that amount of time,
that's what you would
simply
assume.
because of age.
That's what you would assume.
But
I'm not entirely sure on the house's, occupancy over the years. Um,
right,
but I do remember reading something specifically on people trying to debunk conjuring, uh, the conjuring home, that you know legend, if you will. Um, Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are out of Connecticut, and they went to go investigate it, just like they investigated, the Amityville Horror, the haunting in, I can't remember the exact town, but the haunting in London, which was the movie based off of The Conjuring 2.
right.
So, and there have been a lot, as much as I do believe Ed and Lorraine Warren did have a gift. I'm sorry. I do, in fact, believe that Ed and Lorraine Warren were wrong about, at least about the Conjuring house in Harrisville with Bathsheba. But that's just my personal opinion on the legend.
Yeah, that, and again, like I said earlier, I'm probably the biggest skeptic in the world when it comes to um, paranormal hauntings, simply because of my experience. Um, because there's just so much that can be read into it, and so much that your mind people don't understand how much your psyche can play into that stuff.
Yes,
If you're going there expecting a haunted house, you're going to walk away with a haunted house. I mean,
exactly.
you're going to be 100% convinced that that house is haunted,
Hmm.
even though everything that you've experienced can be explained away. Now, the reason I I feel so strongly that the house that I personally lived in was haunted is because you couldn't debunk anything.
Yes,
You actually saw the stuff with your own eyes. There was no debunking a flower pot flying 30 feet through the air and slamming into a wall.
Oh yeah.
You can't explain that. Oh, the air conditioner just kicked on. Well, the goddamn thing weighs 5 pounds. I mean,
Yeah.
how's it going to fly 30 feet without some type of manipulation? So but the thing that I look at again is, and I'm not saying that the Conjuring house is not have something going on there. I'm not saying that at all. Um, but it just seems so odd that between the time of the actual residents who are supposed to be haunting the house and 19, what was it again, 70, something like that,
1970. Yep.
nothing's reported, nothing's talked about. There was no stories coming out of there at all.
Yep.
Kind of seems a little fishy to me,
It does.
but it makes for great urban legend fodder.
It
You
does.
know?
And I'm also not going to sit here and say that you know um, there's nothing in that house. I do believe that they did experience something. Now, I also have had experience with this firsthand. Um, when you are working with spirits or any type of haunting, whether it be a residual haunting, a poltergeist, a loop, a demonic oppression, there are points where spirits will lie dormant. I have personally dealt with that multiple times. Uh, and I have not actually dealt with a I've never heard of a dormant haunting that has gone on for 85 years, like the time in between when Bathsheba died and when the Perrin family moved in. But to say that it wouldn't be the case, or to say that that couldn't happen, where a spirit would lie dormant for 85, 90 years, I mean, I'm sure that there very well could be a possibility. But you know, I do
And
find it funny that nothing has picked up because in my
yeah,
experience, and this again, just my experience, when a haunting or a spirit lies dormant, they in my experience, the longest that I've ever dealt with um, a spirit in a dormant state was probably about 6 months. Probably about that long. Um,
hmm
would be the longest. Um, but usually, and here's another theory. Certain kind of spirits, they they feed off of and they're kicked up on certain energies that are brought into a place or even a person. Um, so if there was a negative entity residing in that farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island, um, the Perrin family could have had some sort of internal issues. Maybe it's never been talked about, but maybe there were marital affairs, or maybe you know um, any array of negative uh, energy that could have
right.
picked it up. But I would think after laying dormant for that long, it would have to be something pretty significant, some pretty significant negative energy to kick up something to that magnitude that they said it was they experienced.
Yeah, because that's some insane shit. I mean, and yeah, I can see that in a way because my sister in the house that she's living in now, when the owner before her was a little old retired lady, and I'm not going to pretend to know her name because I don't remember it now.
Hmm.
But um, her and her husband had moved in, and there was never any issues at all. I mean, there was it was they just living in a house, and um, they started remodeling the house. And as soon as they started remodeling, my sister said weird stuff started happening. Things started moving, stuff would get shifted, things would get lost
Yeah.
easily, and it happened over and over and over and over again. And the only thing that they could figure out was the little old lady that had lived there before it was still residing there, and now they're changing her house, and she did not appreciate it. So literally, this is the story my sister told me. She sat down in the living room and she said, "Okay, Miss, I'm going to say, I'm going to call her May because I don't know her name, but she said, she says, okay, Miss May, here's what we're doing.
Yep.
we're going to do some remodeling around here. We're going to change this and we're going to change that. But I promise you, you're going to like it when we're done, okay? Because there's going to be more of this and there's going to be more of that, and this is going to be this color and that's going to be that color. And we feel that it's something that, you're going to really enjoy when we're finished." And she said it was like the whole atmosphere in the house changed at that point.
Like
And
it's settled.
things just, yeah, it just felt calmer in the house because she had taken the time to explain to Miss May that they're not trying to wreck what she had done. They were just trying to make it more comfortable for everybody,
Yes.
and it was like all of a sudden this lady accepted it and the stuff stopped immediately. Bam, quit.
Yep.
you know so she says now to this day, every time she starts to do something around the house, she sits down and she has a talk with Miss May,
Hmm.
and lets her know that this is what's going to happen. And she said there hasn't been any problems since she started doing that, but she does it every single time now. So
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
it's there. There is that thing where, yes, stuff can lie dormant, for a while until it's disturbed. Yeah, but I mean, that long, that's a long time.
It is a very
That
long time. And to the gravity of the situation, for it to be of that magnitude, um, it would have had to have been a big disturbance to
Yeah.
really, for lack of better words, considering the movie's The Conjuring, to conjure something like that up. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
it's crazy. It is, and it really is a sad story about Bathsheba. Any of our listeners out there, take your time and go and research, movies that are based on true stories. Go and research the actual stories and not just what the tabloids say. Get your information from, you know, uh, neighbors, people who have
Yes.
lived near these sites for years and years and years and know the local legends or know the truths about local legends. Really
Right.
do your research.
Right. Because I mean, the thing you have to understand is in situations like that where they they make a movie based on a story.
Yes.
Listen to the wording of that. Okay. It's not they're making a movie about that story. They're making a movie based on that story,
Yep.
which means this is the story of an old lady who may be haunting this house. That is the all that they need to make a movie off of that. That they don't need any more information than that. They can make up everything else.
Exactly. They
You
just
know,
they just
it's
need the plot and they fill in the holes. That's it. You
exactly,
know.
exactly. So don't think that what you're getting from Hollywood is the actual story of what's happening.
Mhm.
Believe me, it's been embellished, it's been flourished, it's been beefed up. You know,
Exactly.
you get in an hour and a half, you may get 30 years worth of things, you know, in an hour and a half. They
Yes.
condense it all down, they pack it in all nice and neat
Mhm.
little package. And, you know, so keep that in mind.
They
You
have
know,
to
keep that in mind.
they have to squeeze it into an hour and a half to 2 hour movie. You know, you got to think
Right.
about it that way. So it's like where you think they're cramming events that happen over a 10 years period of time into, you know, in cinema world, they are, you know, transcribing that into 3 days in a movie. You know,
Exactly.
it's Hollywood people.
Exactly.
I will say this. I will say this. Okay, this isn't even about urban legends. This is definitely a talk for another time. Um, the movie, the Paranormal Activity. Most people have seen it.
Yeah,
In my experience, again, just my experience, that movie is as close to the truth with uh, a demonic oppression into possession that you can get. The end is a little hokey where she like gets possessed and throws them through a camera. If you haven't seen the movie, sorry, spoiler. Um, you know, that's a little hokey, but you know, um, people who have been dragged out of bed, people who have been physically hurt, the thumps in the night, the doors open. It's funny, actually. I was filming my bathroom door off my bedroom. I had the other night. I had my cats all on my bed. I was trying to sleep, and I kept hearing the door creak. And there's no draft, windows are closed, no fans going, no draft, and the door is just swinging open and then closing. Which, you know, skeptics very well could say, you know, you got loose hinges, whatever. Something to that effect.
right, right.
I know it's not a loose hinge. But,
No,
I'm sorry?
no. That's absolutely, you know, and I wouldn't be doing this if I did not believe in the paranormal.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
it would just be a debate between you and I,
Yeah.
is all it would boil down
Well, they
to.
can. The thing is just like you, I can debunk a lot. I'm not going to waste my time talking about paranormal activity with someone who desperately believes that they have something paranormal, and I can say no, it's not. You know, there's a lot of things. There's like a checklist that you have to go down to make sure that that is in fact something you cannot explain.
Right. And you know, one of the things that I saw recently, and I'm not going to say who it was that I saw do this, but they were quote unquote ghost hunters, and they had a spirit box. Now, if you don't know what a spirit box is, a spirit box is a radio, basically, is all it is, but it cycles through the channels very quickly, back and forth, back and
Yes.
forth, back and forth. So it does not ever stop on one channel long enough to really hear anything. Now, according to the science of the spirit box, the spirit can use that to speak through. So through all this static, you will hear words and phrases come out from a spirit. Okay, now
Hmm.
picture this. You have two people. One has a spirit box, one is asking questions. The one with the spirit box has on headphones. So they're listening to the spirit box. They can't hear the person asking questions, or so they say. They can't hear that person asking questions. All they can hear is the noise from the spirit box.
Yeah. And usually it's a lot of static and white noise and
It is. And you know, this person over here is asking questions. This person over here is answering them from the spirit box. And I thought it was quite entertaining the way that this was playing out, because this one would say, do you want to talk? And this one would say, get out. They're not able to hear one another, they say. They're not able to hear one another and what's going on, but then you can't hear what's going on either. You have no clue what's happening because you can't hear it. They've got headphones on,
Yeah.
So it's like, what the hell are you guys doing? I mean, Laurel and Hardy could do something like that and pull it off. It's not that hard to do, especially when you have three people and only two of those people are on camera at that time. What's the third one doing? Where are they at?
Yeah.
What
Exactly.
what are they doing? They holding up cue cards or what? You don't know what's going on. So it's like it's crap like that. Come on, give me something.
You mean like
I
cue
can
cards, like on like the '90s sitcom shows where they'd walk by and go applause?
exactly. There's a hold up a card that says, get out. That's the main one. You always hear that. Get out.
Oh
Okay,
yeah, it's always get out, or
yeah,
you can't be here, you know,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
or dead. Like, yeah, we get it. They're supposed to be dead, you know.
Yeah, and I'm not bad mouthing all ghost hunters.
No.
And, I'm not. I'm just saying, come on, folks. Get real with this shit. Because I've been there. I witnessed it. I know what it looks like. I know what it feels like.
Yeah.
Okay, you're not fooling an eighth grader here.
Yeah.
Give me something intelligent. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Some of the best ghost hunting shows I've seen are from Europe, you know, because they get real about that shit. They don't mess around. They don't go in with all this fancy dancy bullshit equipment.
Nope.
They just go in and bang, there it is,
Yeah.
And,
Either they're going to catch something or they're not, and they're not going to fabricate
Exactly. And it's so, it's like so many of these shows are so overdone.
I know.
It's like, God, stop. Just stop. But yeah, let's get back. Let's get back to what we were originally talking
the point
about.
I was making with Paranormal Activity and my door opening is it's very much like that. It's very slow. It's like things over time, and either it dwindles down to a dormant state again, or it gets stronger, and then eventually dwindles down. Everything that has energy can lose energy too. You see what I'm saying? Everything, eventually it comes to a rest to some degree. So that could be more of on the spiritual side of an explanation for that dormant state in the Conjuring house.
Right.
So,
right.
But I don't know. It is definitely a an urban legend that has been passed down ever since. But now it's got all this notoriety and fame because of the movie.
Yeah.
So.
And the door opening and closing, I'm very, very, very familiar with that. In fact, in the haunted house that I lived in, it was funny because my parents owned the house and they went on vacation. They went on an extended vacation for like 3 months, and they asked that my my ex-wife, and I stay there while they were gone, and then when they got back, then we could get our own place, which was great because that allowed us to save money.
Yep.
But we invited a friend up, a friend of my wife's, to come up and stay the night, and she was sleeping in one of the bedrooms one night, and she wasn't sleeping; she was actually sitting. I think I told the story before, sitting reading a book, and because she was a bookworm, and we had already gone to bed, and the door to the bedroom opened. Well, the door was all the way closed, and the doorknob was latched; it was closed tight, and the doorknob turned, and the door opened about 2 inches, and she sat up and looked over at the door, and she said, "Kathy," and she said, "The door closed back all the way, click, and shut. And she just thought it was my wife checking on her. Well, my wife wasn't checking on her. My wife was in bed, and got up the next day, and she said, Kathy, what did you want? And my wife said, what are you talking about? She said, well, you opened the door and looked in on me last night when I was reading. And Kathy goes, no, I didn't. And she goes, what what happened? And my wife told her that at that time, well, the house is haunted.
Ah,
She packed
well,
her
forgot to
shit and
tell ya.
split, man, and she never came back. That was
Oh,
that was it. She was done. You know?
you know something? I really can't wait until we get to the section or the episodes in this podcast where we start talking about all of our paranormal experiences, because I have so many, and I have quite a few that are insanely intense. That it's almost unfathomable, like to the point where it's like, you know, there's no way that can be real. And
Right.
I know that you have some of the same stories, so that will be very exciting once we do jump into that. Um,
Well, that may be episode 4.
that absolutely,
Because
absolutely.
it to it's so much fun for me to talk about that, and there it's
Yep.
it's really
It's
hard. I mean, for people that have never experienced anything like that, it's really hard for them to comprehend, what is
hmm
that this is real. This is the truth that we're talking about. I'm not going to sit here and make up a story. I've told this same thing to 100 different people 100 different times, and it's always been the same.
yep,
If you're making something up, you're going to embellish it, you're going to make it different, you're going to
yep.
change it, you're going to make it more fascinating. And I have done none of that. Everything I'm saying now is the same thing I said then. There's no difference in it.
Yep.
I'm not embellishing anything. I'm just telling you exactly what I saw and
Yeah.
exactly what
No
my
matter how
experience was.
Yep, no matter how crazy it may sound or how boring it may sound. For instance, my
Yeah.
husband, this was a couple of months ago, my husband and I were laying in bed, and, you know, I'm so entirely desensitized to the paranormal at this point. Just I don't know why. I just am. Um
Right.
well, I do know why. I shouldn't say that. I do know why. Um, I've dealt with it for so long. But my husband, on the other hand, he's not desensitized to it. Um, so long story short, we were laying in bed, and it's a super boring story. And he goes, "Do you hear that?" And I said, "Do I hear what?" And I'm listening, and it's just bang, bang, bang against the wall. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, and I'm like, well, I said it's the house demon, leave it alone. And it wouldn't stop. So it was driving him insane. And it got to the point where it was driving me insane. And the only thing I can compare it to is it didn't sound like somebody was hammering. It literally sounded like someone was smashing their head against a wall repeatedly, which that in itself is creepy. Um, it was that distinct sound of like your when your head hits something or hits against something.
Right.
So my husband's looking at me and I'm looking at him and he's just staring at me at this point. So I throw myself out of bed and I'm like, I'll go check it out. Like so sure enough, went, checked everything, couldn't hear the sound. Like I could hear the sound, but I couldn't find where it was coming from. Um, it really just sounded like someone. I mean, and it may not have been anything paranormal. I could have had some drug addict outside of my house just banging his head against my house. We
Right.
don't know, but still, like as stupid of a story as it is, it's still a story that happened. And needless to
Yeah.
say, neither one of us, it continued on all night long.
Oh.
We got no sleep. And I'm pretty sure
Oh.
that if it was an actual drug addict outside of my house, he would have knocked himself out eventually. Nope. I so I mean, something was clearly knocking. It was definitely it was definitely something trying to get our attention. And it got
Yeah.
our attention and our, our sleep. It wouldn't let us sleep. Eventually, it was probably close to 5 in the morning, maybe 4 in the morning. Maybe I'm exaggerating there, when it
Ugh.
stopped. But still, and it was just repetitive,
Yeah.
very repetitive. But that's a boring story. But I don't have to
Well,
embellish it. It's true, you know.
there's no such thing as boring stories. I believe me, my whole life is stories about one thing or another.
Yep.
Speaking of stories, I've got a story for you,
Let's
and
hear it.
and this is an urban legend, or actually, this is several urban legends
Interesting.
um, that happened in a place known as Helltown, Ohio,
Hell.
which is about 45 minutes from where I live. Um, Helltown, Ohio is actually what's known now as Boston, Ohio.
Oh.
But at that time, it was the areas of Boston Township, um, Boston Village, with portions of Sagamore Hills, Northfield Center Township. It's just kind of all combined at this area. And it started in the early 1800s and it started building a township there. And when the railroad went through, because of all the mills that they had built in the area, they called it Boston Mills, and so the name stuck. And it was called Boston Mills forever. Um, but in the 1970s, it disappeared. It was like
Huh.
somebody came through and just swept the town away. It became a ghost town in the 70s, and the rumors naturally started flying. They 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 the biggest one was that the government had had a huge chemical spill there, and it was covered up. Naturally, the government, they're going to cover up shit like that, so they
Yeah.
covered up this oil spill. um, and
That.
people started evacuating the town. um, they left their cars, they left their farm equipment, they left the school buses, they left everything behind. They just left. And the ones that didn't leave, uh, obviously, what else would happen? But they would start mutating the people and the animals around there, and there was urban legends of 60-foot pythons slithering through the woods that were mutated from this chemical spill. There are these zombie people that
Oh my
wander
goodness.
the streets at night. That this is a paranormal researcher's freaking dream at this place. I kid you not, because it's got
Absolutely.
everything but UFOs, everything but UFOs. Because the after that happened, they're hold on to your hats, boys and girls, because here it comes. You know it's coming. It's coming out of the blue. After that happened, the Satanists took over. Oh no.
Oh,
Oh my God.
not
They
the
moved in.
Satanists.
The Satanists, oh my God, they're here.
Oh
they took
no.
they took over, and and they actually stopped the school bus and killed all the children on the school bus, and the school bus could still be found downtown. And they had Crybaby Bridge, a bridge in town overlooking a river, where a distraught mother took her newborn child and tossed it over the bridge and then killed herself. So, at night you go down there and you be real still and real quiet, and you can hear the baby crying in the wind, and you can hear the cries of the distraught mother. Oh my God. And it just goes on and on and on. You go to the cemetery, which sits on the side of a cliff overlooking the valley, which it doesn't. It's a little hill that anybody can get to. And you go up this and drive up this treacherous road to get there, and the trees move. All the trees in the cemetery move because, hold on to your hats again, the Satanists are warning people to stay away.
Oh
So
my
the trees,
goodness.
I'm serious. The trees are moving through the graveyard, and there's this ghost of this guy that sits on a bench in the graveyard, staring off into eternity forever and ever. And the only problem with the story is there's no bench in this graveyard.
Oh
So,
my God.
but you ain't heard nothing yet. We got tons of this shit. Okay, then there's this story that at the original bridge in town that the let me get the story right. If you park your car at this bridge and you turn it off and you walk away, then there was a mass murder of children around that bridge.
Is this where they say
And
that the children will push your car? The spirits of the kids will push your car?
yes,
I've heard this
and the
one.
funny thing is, the same damn thing happens in San Antonio, Texas.
Oh my goodness. Hey,
But you get
this.
handprints on the back of your car if you put like baby powder on the back of your car.
Yep,
You get fingerprints on the back of your car. Yeah, the
I've
same
heard
thing
of
is
that
happening
one.
in San Antonio. Okay, and only the one in San Antonio is if you park your car on this level plane, the car will actually, if you put it in neutral and leave your car, the car will roll uphill towards some railroad tracks. Now, the railroad tracks is where the school bus stalled full of kids, and a train hit the school bus and killed all the kids on the school bus. Okay, that's the story in San Antonio. Now, it works. It's happened 1,000 times. Everybody goes out there. They put baby powder all over the back of their car. They get out of their car. They put it neutral. They let it sit there, and the car will start rolling. They have it documented on film. The car starts rolling uphill onto the railroad tracks. And then somebody got smart and went down there with surveying equipment and
Ah,
started looking at the lay of the land
okay.
and found out that uphill grade
Is actually
is
a
actually
downhill.
a downhill grade,
Yep.
but it's just the way that the land sets and the trees are growing. It makes it look like it's uphill. And
Wow.
the fingerprints on the back of your car, yeah, they're your fingerprints because everybody opens their trunk and gets into their trunk. So they're leaving the oil from their hands on the car that the baby powder won't stick to, and it blows off and all that bullshit. The same thing is happening here. Okay, the same damn story, and there's more, and it goes on, and it literally covers every part of the paranormal. You got mutant people, you got mutant animals, you got Satanists, you
Okay.
have
I'm gonna cut
you
you
know,
off. I'm gonna cut you off for a quick second here, cause Ryan Murphy, the creator of American Horror Story on FX. I
yes,
think I just
yes,
found your season 11 or 12 of American Horror Story. It's called
right,
Hellstown, Ohio. You got
Hellstown,
Typhon.
Ohio. Yep.
Yep, you got pythons, you got mutant people, chemical spills, Satanists. Oh no. Uh, you know, uh, you got the crybaby bridge where a distraught mother threw her infant over the edge. I mean,
Would I lie to you?
I'm I listen, I believe you, but I'm just saying Ryan Murphy needs to get on this. This is the next season of American Horror Story. I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
but, but, you want to know what really happened?
What really happened?
Here's the here's the story, because the thing with Hilltown, there were all kinds of burned down houses around there. Okay, there were abandoned houses everywhere. There were abandoned vehicles. There was an abandoned school bus in town. You know, the murdered children from the Satanists, the school bus, sitting in the middle of town. The church was taken over by Satanists. You could tell because this church is covered in upside down crosses. They're everywhere. Okay. Here's the breakdown of all of that. the In 1974, good old President Gerald Ford, who probably was the most lackluster president we've ever had, expressed concern that all the forests were being destroyed. So he passed legislation that enabled National Park Services to purchase land to be used as national parks.
Hmm.
So the government came in and started buying out houses, forcefully buying out houses and kicking people off their land,
Okay.
out of their homes. Okay, they would buy them and then they would use them to train firefighters. They would set them on fire and have the firefighters come in and put them out. Well, they felt derelict on their duties, and a lot of the stuff just became abandoned after a while. The cars and the trucks and the farm equipment that was abandoned, it was broken down to begin with, and people weren't going to move crap equipment that wasn't working anyway, so they just left it there.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
And that's where that all came into play. There was no chemical spill. It was the government going in, buying up people's homes to turn it into the Cuyahoga National Park.
Mhm.
Um, it's there today. Most of it's gone. They've pretty much tore everything down, up to now. But the legends still remain, and a lot of the cemetery of the walking trees and the benches still remain. It's still there, but the townspeople got so sick of people coming up there fucking with their stuff that they like put gates up around it and lock the gates. They
Yeah.
don't let anybody in there. But I mean, it's like I said, read up on this because it is so entertaining. It's a paranormal researcher's dream to
Absolutely.
because it's got everything but UFOs. That's the only thing it doesn't have is UFOs. It's got everything else. And god damn, those Satanists just keep coming in and taking shit. The church with the upside down crosses, it was a gingerbread style Gothic church. That was just
Oh.
part of the design. They weren't upside down crosses. That was just part of the design on the church.
Yep. So the Satanists didn't
And,
come and take over.
yeah, and they would report people. In the middle of the night, there would be lights on in the church, and they would look in and see entities moving around in church. Well, it's open to the public. The basement of the church is nothing but offices, office spaces, and libraries that people can use all the time. So people are down there all the time doing shit. You know? But
Absolutely.
hey, high school kid got to get laid, man. He's gonna take her to wherever it's the worst, and
Yep. Nothing. I'm sorry. It's really true what they say. Nothing goes better together than scary and sex. It's just what it is.
yeah,
It's like peanut butter and
absolutely,
jelly.
absolutely, absolutely. You think of you think of all the monsters in the world. The sexiest monsters that ever lived are vampires. I mean,
Mhm.
look at them. They always. Interview with a Vampire. Who wouldn't want to be Tom Cruise
Mhm.
or what's his face, Brad Pitt?
Yep.
Who wouldn't want to be that? You know, hell, I'd do that in a heartbeat. Hell
Yep.
yeah, I'm down.
Exactly. And I mean they're made to be seductive creatures, but I'm going to tell you now, it's kind of with being on TikTok and all of that stuff, people expose themselves. Um and when I say they expose themselves, they say, there's video trends on, oh, well, you can't date him because he's a monster, and then it shows a picture of like creature from the Black Lagoon, and I'm like, all right, you're kind of pushing it for me there, or like you know the which I don't know if you've ever seen this, but there is a movie called Hatchet, and in this movie there's a guy named Crowley who is the killer, and he almost looks like a combination of like Jason Voorhees and Quasimodo. And it's like you guys are really exposing yourself with some kinks that I can't touch. I mean, vampires,
Right.
werewolves, sure. What I mean, Frankenstein. But then when you're getting on like gremlins, finding gremlins sexy, like no thank you. But
Yeah,
no,
that's a
it
little
is
much.
true. Being scared and, uh, sexy time it goes hand in hand. So I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of teenage boys use that tactic. Unfortunately, it backfired for them with me, uh, because when they'd be trying to, bow chicka bow wow, I'd be like, "Shut up! This is so good. There's blood and gore. I
Yeah.
don't want to look at you right now. Put that thing away."
Yeah.
Like,
And I think, and now, I mean, urban legends go far beyond, local urban legends. We've discussed the stuff in your neighborhood, the stuff in my neighborhood, stuff when I was a kid, in LA, urban legends there,
yeah,
stuff you hear internationally, with Bloody Mary or, Slender Man or whatever. But they, some of them get really, really big and really, really blown out and really, really fascinating. Now, I don't know
yeah.
if you've ever heard about
They like,
Admiral James Byrd's secret diary. Um, this opens up a whole new world of urban legends, and this has been going around since the, I think, 50s. If I'm not mistaken, maybe even no, it was the 50s, mid 50s. This has been a legend, and so many people have bought into this, and so many people have really believed in it that it's almost become one of those things that is widely accepted as far as paranormal goes. And honestly, I haven't been able to debunk it to a certain point.
mm-hmm.
And a certain point, I can, but um, Admiral Byrd's diary, he was involved in Operation High Jump um, in the 50s, and that was flying over the poles. It was said that the Nazis in the 40s had sent people to the South Pole who had built a new base, military base on the South Pole,
Mm-hmm.
um, and to that way their next, Fourth Reich, they could launch from there, and it's pretty much equal distance to anywhere else in the planet. So the next attack would come from one of the poles. Um, so they were doing that. They were doing exploration, etc., etc. And this one involves him flying over the North Pole. And he takes off from his base. He's flying over the North Pole. He sees ice, 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 ice. All of a sudden, the ice starts breaking up. He starts seeing green. He starts seeing forests. He starts seeing grass. He starts seeing moss. Then he starts seeing mammoths walking around. And all of a sudden, things aren't right. His controls have gone haywire. Nothing is working. The plane is pitching and bobbing. Um, and then suddenly, there's these two spacecrafts pull up beside him. This is Admiral Byrd, okay? This is a rear admiral in the Navy. This is a professional. He's not going to embellish stories. He's not going to make shit up. Um, these spacecrafts pull up beside him, and they have what resembles swastikas on them. And they told him via the radio that they were taking control of his plane, to sit back and relax, and he would be down soon. Um, they then flew into an opening in the North Pole and into this is when he discovered the hollow earth. They fly into the hollow earth to a whole new land, a new universe, a new people. This is a crystalline city.
Is this? I've heard of
it's
this. I've heard of this. Well, okay. I've heard of this, but I want to make sure I'm not confusing this with another one as well, like combining the two. Does this
right.
have anything to do with reptilian people?
No, it does not. As a matter of
Oh,
fact,
because I
it does
have
not.
heard something about Hollow
Yes,
Earth and people in the poles, um,
exactly.
and finding that there were reptilian hybrids.
And that stems off of this story. This
Okay,
is the original story.
so this is just a variation.
You
Okay.
right, it's variation, and you can go on. I mean, even Mount Shasta in Northern California
Hmm.
is said to be a portal into Hollow Earth, because there is. I mean, I lived up there for a while. Shasta is a weird cat. I mean, there's this volcano, this dormant volcano standing there with no other mountains around it. It's just there, you know,
Hmm.
and it just looks odd standing there all by itself. And then at night, there's these lights that come out of it, and nobody's been able to explain what these lights are. They just emanate from this mountain, and people say that that's the openings to the Hollow Earth. That's another opening, but the whole story goes on and on and on about Admiral Byrd and this story, and it's fascinating. It is fascinating reading.
Hmm.
It really is. Um, but the problem is, Operation High Jump happened in the Antarctic.
Hmm.
This story happens in the Arctic.
Okay.
Okay, they're two different things. Antarctic is the southern pole.
Yep.
The Arctic is the northern pole.
Yep.
Um, Byrd never did exploration like that on the North Pole. He did do a little bit of flying over it, but nothing like that.
Yep.
Um, Also, when the story was written, the story uses all kinds of exclamation points. And, I mean, just written in all this fancy, flourishing writing that a professional writer, author would write. A military guy doesn't write like that.
No.
He writes a sentence and it ends in a period.
Yep.
If there's a pause, there's a comma. That's it.
Yep.
There's no exclamation points. There's no this. There's no that. There's no fancy writing. There's no fancy embellishments. They're always very, very straightforward
Very
and
matter
very
of fact.
military. All of Byrd's writings are like that, except this secret diary. And then it's all crazy. So it's been debunked several times, but that is, I'm not going to go into it any farther than that. I could spend all night on that thing because I've read it and it's fascinating. But
I'm gonna
it,
have to, and
it's
we'll make an episode out of it because
but
that's interesting. And as far as like conspiracy theories go, I definitely would not put it past the government to, or the world leaders to know of a Middle Earth and, you know, be hiding it, essentially.
Well, here is the only thing that I glean from all of that that stands out more than anything else, and it's that after Operation High Jump, there are now, because the all the major governments of the world got together, there is a no-fly zone over the Arctic and the Antarctic. You cannot fly over the North Pole or the South Pole for any reason.
How convenient.
Period. Period. You cannot fly over that. That then starts popping up questions. Why?
Absolutely.
Why can't we do that? Because, and it just goes on and on and on. It makes my head crazy thinking about this stuff. And I do. I stay up nights thinking about crap like this. I think
Yeah,
about, okay,
absolutely.
flat Earth. What if the Earth really is flat? I can't prove that it's round. I can't put my arms around it. Some of the shit they talk about makes sense. What if it is flat?
Yeah,
Just crap like that is stuff that goes through my head
yeah.
24/7.
Oh, yeah.
So so that's why I was so fascinated. But if you want to talk about the hollow earth theory, there is tons and tons and tons of stuff out there concerning this. Not just Bird's Diary, but everyday people. I mean, there's stories about people who have gone hiking up on Mount Shasta, people that have been with groups of people. Weather's not bad, weather's beautiful, clear as a bell, no
Hmm.
problems at all, and these people just disappear. And to this day, they're gone. They don't know where they went.
Yep.
They never been found. They were
Yeah.
with this group of people hiking and they just
There's
freaking gone, you know?
it's crazy because there's so much that that happens that you can't explain. Like all these people disappearing. Like, I mean, kind of convenient, don't you think?
So there's all kinds of stories about that stuff. And, that, like you said, that can be a whole nother episode. We can delve into that. But the Bird Bird's Diary is just another instance of urban legends gone wild. You can debunk it. You can debunk 99.9% of Bird's Diary, but it's the thing that makes movies. It's the thing that makes stories. It's as much as we say urban legends are bullshit, it's the thing that makes us. It's our imagination. It's our superstition. It's our science running amok, and we have that's part of our life that we have to have. We have to have this kind of stuff to survive. You can have hard science, you can have computers, you can have whatever you want to have, but you also have to have that fantasy mixed in with the reality, in order to exist. I believe as a human, it has to be there. Do you agree? Do you disagree? It's you know, it's just it's one of those things that you know humans have to continue to look at. We have to continue to explore. And I think that there's a lot of this that comes down to human nature. That's all it boils down to. But it's I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. And even to this podcast, you hear us talking about you know the technical difficulties we have, and the demonic problems, and there's somebody that doesn't want us to do this. It's that, it's absolutely that. It's that, and it's working on us, um, all the time. And yeah, I think I lost my host. I think I lost my co-host. Hang on, we're going to see if we can find her. Just hold on just 1 second. Okay, we are back, and one more time, it seems like uh, whatever is against us attacked us again. They they stole Audra from the
Mm-hmm.
broadcast. They shut her down, and you guys got hung with me for a few minutes, but I think we're back. Uh, Audra, you're still there, right? Okay.
We're back. I mean, they try to keep getting
Okay.
rid of me, but
If
I keep coming
nothing
back.
else, guys, stay
So
tuned to
I
the
think
show to see what's going to happen next, because it seems like we are in a fight right now with all the powers that be that are keeping us from broadcasting, because they're afraid we're going to touch on something that maybe we shouldn't be delving into. Um, but you know what? We're
exactly.
stronger than they are, and we're going to keep right on rolling. Um, so, oh, really? I have Chewbacca in the room with me now. My English Mastiff, Kiva, has found her way up to the room. So, if you hear any funny noises, that's her wanting to be petted and loved. Um, but anyway, Audrey, do you have anything else you want to cover for tonight? No, we got you back on.
Yeah, now that you got me back, no, I think I'm pretty tapped out on the urban legends tonight because we have the, I mean there are hundreds out there and we can explore those more. But I think we've covered the majority that we could tonight. So let's see what other episodes
Oh
come
yeah,
up and
we'll
where we can run
definitely
with
do
those.
another episode on urban legends. We've got another episode definitely coming out of that. We've got more episodes coming up on obviously the paranormal and ghost stories that we talked about earlier. The Hollow Earth theory. Another episode there. It's just it's never ending. But I mean, the biggest thing we're fighting is our own gremlins here on this show. They are the Transcending Veils
Mm.
gremlins. They will not leave us alone. So, stay tuned to see what
Nope.
happens next.
And exactly, and we'll leave it up to the viewers, you guys's, you know, um, imagination. Is it the government? Is it a spirit? Is it demonic forces? Or is it in fact gremlins? Or are we all just crazy and it's just technical difficulties?
That's
We'll leave it
right.
up to your
But you
discretion.
never know what's going to happen next time. Anyway, with that,
Exactly.
Audra, I think it's about time to say goodnight. Can you tell these good people where they can contact us at?
I absolutely can. You guys, if you guys want to reach out to us, uh, you can get us at transcendingveils@gmail.com. You can find our Facebook page, Transcending Veils Podcast. You can find us on Instagram at Transcending Veils. You can find us on Twitter at Transcending Veils. If you want to find myself on Instagram or D.E. Riley, uh, find me at Mother Lucifer. I'm sorry. Things have changed. Things have changed. Let me explain that first. So The Instagram for Audra Moon underscore is no longer active. We have changed it. It is now Mother Lucy, Lucie, Fur, Furr. That's at Mother Lucifer. And then you've got D.E. Riley. You can find him on Instagram at Not Really Willie. You can also find us on TikTok at Not Really Willie or at Audra Moon underscore. And we look forward to hearing from you guys. Let us know if you have any requests for future episodes. Give us your feedback. Let us know your theories. It doesn't matter if it's paranormal, conspiracy theories, UFOs, urban legends, witchcraft, Satanism. It really doesn't matter. We want to hear from you guys. You guys are what make us,
Absolutely.
and we're excited to hear from you. So please check us out on all these platforms. And we bid
Absolutely.
you
And I'll leave you
adieu
with
for the
this.
night.
I had a message. I can't remember now if it was on Twitter or Instagram or whatever from one of our listeners. And she asked the question, how far are we willing to go with our broadcast? And my answer to her was there is no limits on how far down that rabbit hole we are willing to go. Okay. So if we can blow the top
Absolutely.
off, we will. If we can dig deeper, we will. We're not going to be nice about it. We're not going to be candy coated about it. There's no candy ass here. I mean,
No,
it's
we're
straightforward,
also
and if it, like we said before, if it offends you, then be offended. If it pisses you off, then I guess you're going to be upset about it. But that's just the way life is. And we are going to keep moving forward. We're going to keep getting into this, and we're going to keep producing these podcasts for you, our listeners. Just send us ideas. If you want to hear something in particular, like Audra said, just let us know. We will be more than happy to cover it. We're having fun doing this, despite the technical problems we run into, whether they be physical or demon manifestations. Who knows? Who knows? You never know what's going to happen next time. So
who
stay
knows?
tuned, boys and girls, because it's going to be a bumpy
Yeah,
ride.
I know. Next time we could be doing a podcast and the
Yeah,
FBI could show up at
yeah.
one of our doors. I mean, you never know. But I will
That's more.
we'll
That's
stay
probably more
rolling if
likely to
that
happen with
happens.
me
Rest
than it is
assured.
with you. But
I don't know.
all
I
right.
guess we'll
Well, with
see what we
that,
get into.
Audra, I bid you good night, my dear. Um, Take care of
And
yourself, you
I bid you
guys.
good
Keep it
night.
spooky. Have a good time in life, and keep an open mind. Keep exploring, and tune in next time. We'll be here. Bye bye.
Bye, guys.